partner to advance effective rail investments. We are partnering here. No one's doing this on their own. This is all about a collaboration between FRA and our other sister modes, the states, consultants, the railroads, both class 1s and short lines, Amtrak, and many others that are part of the process. We have to work together. We want to advance projects. We're not here to slow them down. We're not here to stop things. We're here to advance things, and that's a collective goal we all share. And these investments need to be effective. We need to make sure we're delivering for the American taxpayer projects that are going to deliver against the benefits that we've set out. We have three primary goals that we are working towards: rail safety and resilience. The core of everything we do revolves around safety. Anything we invest in, that's got to be a key parameter. Passenger rail development remains a strong focus for us through our investments in IIJA. And then the sort of quieter goal, but really, really important to us, and I want to talk for a couple minutes about this, is our program innovation and capacity. This is about delivering, modernizing our systems, modernizing our processes so that we can be more effective in getting shovels in the ground and getting projects completed and in operation. And it's also about building the capacity. Again, FRA working on our capacity, we have grown from 90 in my office alone, 94 folks about a year and a few months ago. We're up to 185 as of this meeting and growing.
As you could probably tell, a theme of the presentations from the FRA side is going to be about partnership, because we do not do this alone by any means. We are only one part of the funding stream, so to say, and we are here to help effectively advance the rail projects that you, our stakeholders, submit to us. We are not doing the administration of those projects from the project management side down on the ground. We are providing the oversight, and we have a full team here with us to do that. And so we've heard a little bit today about some of the streamlining initiatives that FRA and the Office of Rail Development have underway, but I wanted to highlight some that maybe have not been said as well. So I know both Administrator Bose and Associate Administrator Nissenbaum have mentioned that we have hired a lot of transportation professionals and project delivery professionals over the last year. I want to take a step here and highlight a bit more in detail, just so that you understand how many people we have brought on board at FRA, and specifically in RRD. Since the San Diego conference back in October, we have added an additional 30 employees to RRD. And if you take a further step back, since the last fiscal year, we have added close to 70 employees. So we are growing rapidly, and with growth also comes training opportunities. So we are not only hiring, but we are training our staff to help deliver these projects in an effective manner. And Paul also mentioned the restructuring that we have recently gone under. I guess it's about 18 months now, but we restructured the FRA office to better align with our internal processes and our external stakeholders. Again, that's with the partnership that comes into place. With that, we have with my office, Regional Outreach and Project Delivery, we have the Regional Outreach side, which Paul already mentioned, that is head by Wynn Davis. We also have a training and capacity building division that is helping to not only train our internal employees, but also help to strengthen that external partnership by providing the information that you, our stakeholders, have been requesting and need in order to submit quality applications, understand what the grant process is, and really figure out what to expect when you're expecting a grant. And then we also have a sister office that is not in RRD, or Railroad Development, but is the Office of Research, Data, and Innovation. And as the name suggests, we are relying heavily on that office for a lot of the data-driven decision-making that we make. So this will help when it comes to some of the initiatives that we have underway, trends analysis, all of the data that we have been collecting from the projects over the past many years, and really figuring out how we can make things better, faster, and stronger.
Okay, so what does the environmental office do besides that lady who talks about smokestacks? So in general, we oversee all of the compliance that we're responsible to do as a federal agency for environmental and cultural resource laws and regulations. If you've worked on a federal project before, you're like, there's NEPA folks and they make me do stuff. That's us, that's our office. But we also work collectively to advance the infrastructure projects. That is why we are here. That is why the railroad, our RRD office is here. We are partners to get you and your infrastructure projects completed. We are a required part of the process, but we're here to try and make that as effective and efficient as possible, and also really emphasizing the great benefits that rail has for our country and an environmentally really sound way to transport the material that we transport on our rail systems. Why are you here, though? Because environmental and historic preservation compliance is a requirement of any sort of federal grant. So you have done this on other federal grants, even if you may not have felt it. It is required on every project that FRA does. You may say, but Amanda, it seems really weird because I have just an engineering and a NEPA project. We are doing environmental work and environmental compliance on every project that we do. It is going to be scaled on the level of the project that you have. So Carla talked about like that pre-obligation, post-obligation slide. NEPA is required, or environmental cultural resource review is required. Depending on the kind of project, it might be in one phase or more in-depth on one phase or another. If you get a grant to just study something, if you're going to get a grant to have someone sit in a room and give them pizza and think about trains, that's a very low lift for us, right? But there is still some review required. It is, very administrative in nature. It is not something you need to worry about as a grantee. But if you're like, hey, I want to put in a brand new siding, I want to do a construction project, you're going to hear a lot more from your environmental and cultural resource folks on those projects. But it is a required part of the process, just like lots of other requirements around, financial controls or, all the other subject matter expert blue people that were on Carla's slide. So it is a required part of the process, and it's a key part of the overall grant life cycle. Again, we cannot stress enough the importance of adequately scoping your project to include what work do you need to do for environmental and historic folks? Like our rail infrastructure is very old, right? It is, I see Heather like, yeah, it's totally old. It's old not in the way that it needs updating all the time, like in the way that we need to care and feed it, and it's super cool because it's trains. So a lot of these resources are historic. We need the cultural resource folks to play a role. You might be replacing a bridge that is historic or that it's older and needs some survey or study work. Understanding that on the front end lets you better understand and scope what you'll need to do to kind of work through our process, get your right contractors or support or folks on board, and then know up front, FRA is going to ask me to do this, or hey, I need to have some resources to the table that I didn't necessarily plan for, and schedule accordingly.
The number one question I get, probably from all grantees, is why does environmental review take so long? Why does NEPA take so long? There's, of course, it depends. Every single project's unique. Every single project has its own challenges. But kind of the messaging we wanted to give today was the more complex environmental review you have, the more time and effort we need from our grantees, from the project sponsors. We need you to provide us with the information so we can get through the process as quickly as possible. Common triggers that many of you may know is, if you're going outside of your existing right-of-way, there is a higher level of environmental review. If you're going into undisturbed areas, that might trigger a more in-depth cultural resource review. We have, waters of the United States, wetlands, Section 404 permitting, Section 7, the Endangered Species Act. If you're taking down a bridge, does it have bat habitat? Are there bats living there now? If you're, clearing and grubbing, do you have migratory birds you have to deal with? Do you have a park or a wildlife refuge or a historic property that would trigger Section 4F? Do you have a historic property? All of these things are, I won't say challenges, they're just part of the process. We just have to identify what they are, know what the impacts are, and decide how we resolve those impacts. So along with what Amanda was saying is things that the grantee can do ahead of time. You know your resources, you know your right-of-way. You know what you have, what facilities you have. One thing you can do in addition to that is consider what natural resources, cultural resources you have within your own right-of-way, but what other potential impacts you may have adjacent to your right-of-way. So there's a couple things that you can do. You know, if you think that your project qualifies for a categorical exclusion, there are some caveats that kick it out of being qualifying for that. But if you think that you can, you know, we have a categorical exclusion worksheet that is publicly available, and we have a workbook. You can look at that, start filling it out. You can, you know, have either, you know, within your own agency or company, you can do that stuff interior to your agency, or you can hire consultants to do this, like a desktop review that will let you know, do you have some of these resources that might cause a higher level of effort to get through the process. The other thing that Amanda mentioned was the scope of work. Many times when we get an applicant, they put in their application, they say this is the scope of work, and then when we award the grant, they rethink that scope of work. Maybe it's based on the funding that was provided, maybe it's the availability of funding that you have, maybe it's the partners that you're working with. But for some reason, there is a shift in the overall scope of work. So from the NEPA process, we actually need to know what the environmental footprint is. And we can't determine that until we really define what the scope of work is. So when you ask the question, why does NEPA take so long, or why does that pre-obligation take so long? Sometimes it's the back and forth between the grantees and FRA and the project manager trying to determine what is the actual scope of work. What are those tasks that you're going to be working through the process to help us define what process you're going to go through for the NEPA process, but also through the culture, you know, all the other regulatory, environmental regulations that we have to follow and comply with.